Okay, hello everyone. I'm Mike Cleveland. This is my wife Jody, and we are here with a new friend of ours, Charlotte from, is it North Hampshire?
Yes.
I got it right. Good. So you're across the pond that we say, or we are. You're at home. But we're just glad to meet with you and talk with you, Charlotte. And can you just give us a little bit of your background and how did we get connected to begin with?
Well, actually, I first heard about this course 3 years ago. So it was a bit of a dramatic period in my life, one of those chapters. And I was just moving from one place to the next, and had then suddenly found myself dating with the prospect to engage and get married this person, and we were wanting to prepare for marriage in the most God-honoring way, and we reached out to a pastor who my husband knew of, but I didn't, and he said, there's this course, I think you should both do it. Now, at the time, it wasn't for the fat loss specifically. It was just to help us with relationship dynamics and just deal with some stuff that we had from the past. And I was browsing through and I saw this one and I thought, actually, I really need to do this. Now, God is very good at finding the perfect timing, and that's not always our timing. So I started it and then got to day like 3 or 4, and for whatever reason, continued it 3.5 years later, and then did the whole thing, and it was just like soaking in like a sponge. So I don't know why there was that period, but actually it was just that I was ready to receive it. I think I probably wasn't ready to really give the course the attention it needs, and also I needed to be a little bit further on in my relationship with God personally, I think, in order to really see the message, which is just running deep in this course, certainly beyond fat loss, that's for sure.
Right. I think that is so common, where we want something, but our hearts aren't ready. And so God just puts a little delay in there until we are fully prepared, and then we can receive it. And it really makes an impact. And so I'm so excited that happened for you.
Thank you.
And you are a personal trainer or a coach. How did you word it? Health and fitness?
Yeah. So my husband, he does the personal training side, but we do workouts daily with everybody. I am more the health coaching side. Like, I've got a background in cellular nutrition and all of this, and advise people on supplementation, natural remedies. And yet I felt like the biggest hypocrite, because fat loss was a massive battle for me. And the only way that I had kind of ever had it under control was normally through traumatic circumstances. So an unhealthy relationship, meaning that it would be a anxiety related, I have to be this way else I'm going to lose, so it was just based upon, really, I had to be miserable and slim rather than knowing ever how to be happy and healthy and also in great shape, So yeah, my background's in health and fitness, and that made it even worse, to be fair. It really did, because I just had so much shame. I would stop going on the workouts in the morning. I'd be like, well, you do it. I don't want to be seen. I can't do this. It's just, so yeah, it was getting ridiculous, really.
Wow. Seems like you had imposed upon yourself maybe a necessity to look perfect because of the particular job and role that you were doing. Is that right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But also I had felt a responsibility, because when I met my partner, I was super slim, like a lot slimmer than I am now. And I felt like I had let it go, really, let myself go over just because I was content now. So I had such a healthy thinking around things. So I was thinking like, oh gosh, now he probably doesn't find me attractive and all of this. And I didn't know how to get back to that former self without being in a toxic relationship. So it was just really messy.
I see. So what are some of the ways in which you, Charlotte, felt trapped in, we would call it sin? You're trapped in this thought process of that's unhealthy and that keeps you in a pattern of behavior. What are some things that led to that? What were you thinking at the time, and how did you actually come to then the weight loss course at Setting Captives Free?
I think there were breadcrumbs dropped throughout my life which weren't planted by God, but I only found faith at 26, to be honest. I was an atheist before that, so he could have had he did have a field day with me. So I think that definitely absorbing beliefs and things that have been said to me as I was growing up, and for instance, said harmlessly, but from parental figure like a father saying, oh, well, you're just taking the big genes of the family, and you're one of the healthy girls, like yeah, a bit more, not your mum's side, which is super slender and everything. And I think that I started to see myself as, oh, I'm a big girl. And so there was little things like that. And I remember there would always be the comment of, you're starting to put on weight, Charlotte. And so it was always very much like body focused. And then for whatever reason, in my teenage years, I just became very wanting affirmation from men, which is unhealthy in itself. But my family don't have faith, so there wasn't that gospel-centered upbringing, and so it was like, oh, well, for affirmation from the guys, I need to be a certain way, and you start to gather things from school friends and things. And I wasn't massively overweight. I was a happy child. I was a healthy child. Yes, a bit podgy when you've got the puppy fat for a few years and whatever, but nothing that was seriously unhealthy or even unhealthy. Just really generally happy. But as obviously the teenage years then developed to the 20s, I started to become, and especially going to London, I mean, that is very much image focused. You walk along the street, every street's a catwalk, especially in the area I was in, you are being looked at, you are being judged, and you are performing no matter where you go. So I think, and then I got into a toxic relationship, and this was just as I found faith, like within 2 months, in fact, within the first month.
Wow.
And it was very unhealthy. It was never really a relationship, but it was with somebody who was extremely stringent and strict on what they ate and how they ate. And for them, 18% body fat was where you start to look at your best. And for me, that was unbelievable. I couldn't get to it, and even though I was trying. And if it was just like there was pet names for me, which I just took because I wanted the love, but they were not healthy pet names. They were like suggesting that that I was overweight, and I had different stages of overweight, and I was a different animal for every stage of my overweightness, and always trying to meet the ultimate. So it just solidified what I was already thinking about myself.
Wow. What's amazing to me is that the seeds that were planted when you were young bore fruit. They grew and caused you to have a body focus, to have a physical appearance outlook on life, it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Isn't that amazing that what somebody says, maybe even off the cuff, not really, maybe even meaning something, but can get so deep down into us that it affects the way that we see ourselves and the way that we live our lives. Charlotte, what are some reasons that you came to Setting Captives Free? What were you thinking at the time?
You know what it was? Again, God's perfect timing. My mum's birthday was coming up, and it was a big birthday where all the family were going to get together. And I said to myself, this was back in March, and notice how there's all I, me. So I said to myself, for my mum's birthday, I'm going to look the best I ever have. Like, I'm going to go back to how I looked pre, like, letting myself go, or even pre that, better than that even. And it's going to be for that birthday, because I know it's summertime and I'm going to be in a dress and I want to feel good, because my family are slim, my brother's never held any weight. My sister has just dropped a load of weight, but she's in a really good place. And I just thought, I want to feel good, because I'm very self-conscious. I don't see my family that much, like my brothers and sisters, because they live all over the place. So it would be kind of like, they know what I do. I want to feel good meeting them. Well, guess what? Completely ironically, the birthday came and I was the heaviest I've ever been. And honestly, I said, come on, everybody, let's have a group photo. And I truly believe it was God that, that orchestrated the worst angle ever for me, where I honestly, when they said a camera adds £5, this was 5 stone. And I was like, oh my gosh, is that really me? So anyway, that was the point that I thought, that was a bit of a wake-up call. Not necessarily that it needed to be anything extreme, but this didn't work out for some reason. Like, considering I've got all the head knowledge, this didn't work out. And the desperation, like, I've got the pain motivator. So anyway, I just flicked into my emails. And again, at the time, I happened to be in my emails for another reason, but again, it was completely God. And I just saw the Setting Captives Free pop up because I'd done a search word and it brought up this. And I was like, do you know what? I need to do this again. I need to give it everything this time. And I couldn't stop. Literally when I clicked on it, I did lesson 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight away. And I was like, I remember this. I need to keep doing it. And it was a daily thing. And it became a massive part of my daily routine. I woke up and couldn't wait to do it, because not only was I being fed, I was just being taught things which would just felt so new to me. And even being taught the gospel message, like I've never even looked at the cross. I know I go on a bit, so do stop me, but I had never even looked at the cross it's a funny thing. Yeah, I'd never looked at the cross in a way of it being able to bring freedom to everyday things, you know. I didn't, to be honest, when I came to faith, I didn't even know what the cross was. I had no idea it's forgiveness and sins and all that. It was only after I became a Christian I picked up a book and realized. So my relationship with it had always been very unusual. And if there was ever the part in the Bible when you get to the Gospels, it talks about the cross, flick over those pages, it'll be too upsetting, I don't want to read it. I couldn't watch Passion of the Christ or anything because I don't want to see it. So it was very much I know about it, but I'll hold it at a distance because I don't want to think about it. But yeah, it's just as I'm speaking to you, I'm getting like revelations, because the way I even came to faith is I read a book that I didn't want to read because I knew it would be too upsetting. So it's kind of saying to me, you've got to turn and face these things that might hurt, because there could be a massive lesson within them. And it was actually through that painful book that I became a Christian at the end of it. So yeah, that was just a little bit of a moment. But did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. So, wow. So you actually had this thinking process of, don't look at the cross and bypass the passages in scripture that talk about it. That's a very natural reaction. Who wants to look at a bloody, gory scene of a man suffering? But when we come to understand that it was purposeful and chosen by God and desired by the Son, to suffer in that way for us out of love, wow, that changes things. And so I take it now that this has changed for you, that you're actually able to maybe even focus on the cross and experience love from it. Can you tell us about that?
Well, it's not even just the crop. Well, if we say typology, because I'm reading at the moment, I started 3 years ago, the Bible, Genesis to Revelation. And to be fair, it's taken me a while because I do like to do it quite in depth. So I'm on Judges at the moment. Goodness knows when I'm ever going to finish. But today only, I was reading Gideon. And I see now Christ and the cross in so much of the Bible. And I'm like, this has just got so much deeper. I need to go back to Genesis again and reread it all, because I'm seeing Christ in so much. And now when I see the suffering, I know God never allows suffering unnecessarily, and he would never wish it or orchestrate it unless it's for their benefit and never just to harm. So I was reading, today, the part in Judges where who is it? I've got to remember their names now. It's the one where his daughter, he makes a vow off his own back, and his daughter ends up having to be sacrificed from it. Well, obviously it's so obvious to me now that is a typology, is Christ. being sacrificed, the father and only son. And I look at it, and before I'd have just thought brutal and moved on. But now I'm like, God's character. I feel I'm getting to know God's character better. I guess that's what I'm saying, because I'm like, God wouldn't have orchestrated that just to cause harm to that girl. He didn't let Abraham sacrifice his son. So what's going on here? And yeah, then think, well, do you know what? He did that vow off his own back. He was actually doing a vow that the demonic gods would ask him to do. And he was putting that on God. God never asked him to do that. So, you know, I'm just seeing the Bible in a much deeper way. And when it comes to the unpleasant stuff, being curious rather than, and seeing the hidden message in it. So quite significant of an impact, actually.
Yeah, I think to be able to look to the cross and see the sufferings of Christ and the love of Christ as part of our healing. And that's what changes us and transforms us from the inside out. That's where we can push past the aversion and be able to focus. And I love that the verse that you chose when we asked before the interview, what verse really impacted you? You chose Isaiah. And
26:3.
Isaiah 26:3, right? His mind is kept in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on Christ, right? And so I love that. Can you tell us why you chose that verse?
Because I just realized that it sounds cliche, but the power is in looking at the cross. The power is in I think you said, Mike, in one of the lessons about looking at Aaron and Moses and her, their arms up, and it's that seeing that throughout the Bible now, because there's so many times they had kept their eyes fixed on him, they had the victory. And one thing that I did in the course, which I've never done before, is even at every mealtime it would normally be, so as soon as I wake up in the morning, or when I would normally eat at lunchtime, in the evening, I was looking to the cross. I was forcing my head to turn and look at it and go, right, what happened here? What does it mean for me? What does that now mean I can do? And like just telling myself the truth behind it. So yeah, that's been huge. And the reason I chose that verse is because that is what I have been doing. I have been turning and fixing my eyes and realizing that there's peace with that. I've been so content and happy. And it kind of ties in with the I think it's Romans 12:1, is it? Where he's saying about, do not be conformed by the patterns of the world, but be renewed. And it's allowing myself to be renewed. And the more you do it, it's being very conscious of the Holy Spirit's constant companionship as well. Like if we knew that we had 5 minutes with God in our life, can you imagine how precious that 5 minutes would be? But we get him every single second, every second of our lives, just there to communicate with and everything. So again, I went a bit off topic, but I just think that there's too much to say, even in a short little interview, if I can call it that, because the revelations.
And you weren't off topic at all, because when we're talking about the cross, then the Holy Spirit comes, because he is there to reveal the cross to us, to show us not only our sin, which then convicts us, but then to show us the solution, which is the death of Jesus and the peace that he made. So we're talking about he will keep in perfect peace the one whose mind is steadfast. Well, the peace is only possible because Jesus Christ made peace between us and God through his sacrifice on the cross. That's Ephesians chapter 2. So keeping our minds stayed on God, steadfast, means fixing our thoughts on Christ and what he accomplished for us. And then the Holy Spirit gets involved in that and makes it real and personal to us. And like you just said, it's not now where we are, hoping to have 5 minutes with him. He's consistently, constantly present with us, and we walk by the Spirit, even as we war, right? That's the next one. So we war against our own flesh. We wash at the cross, we walk by the Spirit, and all those things. Let me ask you this: what things have changed for you? I'm hearing a lot, but are you able to really think through and kind of put it concisely as far as what what is changing in your life right now?
Well, definitely relationship with God and appreciation. I take him so much for granted, and the gratitude I have for him is just so inadequate compared to like what I realize. But it's a journey, isn't it? And through life you will learn and grow and appreciate more and more about him. But even just my attitude towards food and eating was just so off. It was so me dependent. And don't get me wrong, I've slipped back into that on the odd day during this last like 5 weeks or so, where I've thought, hold on a minute, I can do this. Not consciously, but just woken up in the morning and thought, oh, can't pray, I haven't got time. What do I do? Well, I'll just do what I did yesterday. And that is like, number one, I haven't had the opportunity to spend some time with God, which is just the biggest privilege ever. And so it's going to cost me. But it's just also appreciating how important every single stage of those, like walking, washing, walking, and warring are. Every single one of those has its purpose. And if you miss out one, you will suffer in some way because you're relying on yourself and not on Christ. So that really, I've realized that the duty for me is to do those three, to make time for those three, no matter what the sin, no matter what the bondage has been or perceived bondage. My duty is just to get that in, and the earlier in the day the better, because then the less distraction. So I think for me it's just don't make excuses when it comes to spending that time with him. If you miss it, forgive yourself, of course, and that's part of it as well, forgiving myself on the days I do mess up and I've gone, well, lesson learned there, need God. It doesn't work when I do it on my own. So that's been unbelievably, it's life-changing, to be fair. It's life-changing.
I agree. I think I love that you connected it with every sin struggle, because it really is truly, those are the foundational principles for life, not just for weight loss. But so I love that you're seeing that it has permeated, and that this is the foundation for your day going forward, regardless of what aspect of life. So it's beautiful. And I love that you also are talking about the peace that comes. You're not anxious about food anymore. It sounds like you really, when you seek the Lord and you're washing at the cross and walking by the Spirit, that enables you to war against the flesh peacefully, right? You're not anxious about how can I eat, or what did I exercise enough, or any of those things. You're just very calm about it and able to approach it in a non-threatening way.
Absolutely. It's become a pleasure, to be honest. It's not. Yeah, it really has. And nothing's off limits, which is brilliant, because the moment something's restricted, it becomes a craving and all you think about. So it's a walk. It really is a walk. It's a stroll with him, really. It's because it's just a pleasure. And and that's why it's effortless to do. I know I said it requires effort, but come on. Like a little bit of effort in the morning to speak with the God of the universe doesn't require that much effort, but it's really just a discipline of doing it. And because you suffer, you're only going to suffer, and you've missed out, as I say, on that opportunity to speak with God.
Right.
So let's just, as we bring it to a close, what would you have to say to someone who has tried all the diets that man has come up with and lots of other things, and they're just stuck in a cycle and they can't seem to progress? Could you speak to them for a minute? What thoughts would you have to give to them?
Well, Satan loves a cycle. And so if you're stuck in a cycle, be warned, because I have had many cycles in my 6 years, I think, of being within the faith now. And you're just a little hamster in a wheel when you're in one of those. And so if you're in one, no, it's not from God, because he wouldn't have you in a cycle. It's a beautiful routine which brings wholesomeness, like thoughts and peace and all of the fruits of the Spirit with it, if it's something that God ordained for you. If it brings the chaos and just a desire for anything which doesn't bring you peace, it's something which God needs to deal with, because it's not for us to do the spiritual battle, it's for him. And so I would just say, take it very, very seriously, because you can be stuck in that until whenever God has for you, you know, it can be a lifelong thing. So yeah, don't even attempt to do it in your own strength. You need, it's Christ that will break the chains and set you free, for sure.
You know, that's so important. Christ, yeah, it's the reason why he came. He said, he quoted Isaiah 61, I've come to set captives free. So it's his role, his ministry, that he sets us free. And you are, I think, one of the strongest examples of that we have seen. Your testimony is clear. The love that you're experiencing from him is all very clear. And we just really wish you the best, and love to make this connection with you. And we know that God will use you as you are this living word from him to people. So thank you for taking the time to join with us. And do you have any final thoughts to say?
I guess it's just my verse, because it really is just fixing your eyes on him, which won't make any sense if you've not done the course yet. But as you do, you'll realize that the Bible's full of it. The Bible will time and time again throughout every page point you to look at Christ. And it's the spiritual you looking at Christ. Actually, it's a spirit to spirit thing, not just a physical. And that is where the fountain of love and relationship and victory lies. It really is.
That's beautiful.
Oh, well said. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Thank you.